Let's start by giving you an update on the abduction of students from Government Girls Secondary School in Maga, Kebbi State. Now, 2 of the kidnapped girls have managed to escape as security forces close in on abductors' hideout. Authorities say troops are tightening the perimeter around the area where the girls are believed to be held, with search operations expanding into nearby forests. Vice President Kashim Shettima is also expected to arrive in Kebbi State on Wednesday to meet with local leaders and receive direct briefings on the rescue efforts. Now, regarding that, we'll be bringing you more updates on Kebbi State because we have our correspondent Jamil Mabai, who is stationed there and will be talking to us very shortly. But in the meantime, UNICEF has also called on the Nigerian government to secure the immediate release of 25 schoolgirls seized during an attack on a government girls' school in the Maga community of Kebbi State. According to UNICEF, the incident underscores the ongoing vulnerabilities facing students and school personnel, despite Nigeria's endorsement of the Safe Schools Declaration in 2015. It noted that learning environments must be protected and that accountability is essential for preventing further atrocities. The organization is working with authorities and communities to strengthen safety measures and reduce risks confronting children in conflict-affected areas. Now, still on the Kebbi schoolgirls' abductions, the All Progressives Congress, APC, has postponed the reception earlier scheduled for the governor of Taraba State, Agu Kefas, which was to hold on Wednesday, November 19, 2025. The party said a new date will be communicated in due course. According to the APC, the decision was taken in honor of members of the armed forces and civilians recently killed by terrorists, as well as in solidarity with victims of the abductions, including the schoolgirls kidnapped in Kebbi State. The party praised the bravery and sacrifices of Nigeria's military personnel, acknowledging their role in safeguarding the nation. It also expressed deep sympathy for the families of those affected by the tragic incidents. Insecurity is still a continuous conversation as gunmen on Tuesday reportedly attacked a Christ Apostolic Church parish in Eruku under Ekiti local government area of Kwara State, killing 3 worshippers and abducting several others, including the pastor. The assault, which occurred during a church meeting and was captured on a live stream, has left the community in shock and in fear. Now, witnesses say the attackers stormed the church and opened fire immediately, forcing people to run for safety. 3 members were killed instantly, while an unspecified number of worshippers were taken into the bush at gunpoint. Residents report the gunmen fled through remote paths leading to neighboring communities. Now, at the time of this report, neither the Kwara State Police Command nor the state government has issued any official statement on the attack. And now to speak on the insecurity, especially the most recent attack, I'm joined by Dr. Edinen Usoron, security expert and the MD Executive Guard. Thank you so much, Dr. Edinen Usoron, for joining us. Now, we've seen yet another attack on a church in Kwara State. What are your thoughts on this, looking at how tragic that was?
It's a very sad moment. One, because like I said in one of the other time, it's quite unfortunate because we have still not taken this matter with the kind of seriousness that we got to. For goodness sake, this is like a war situation. It is something that we need to, as a country, face it head on. Because nowhere is safe. Nowhere. Because imagine people are in the first of worship. And we're talking about Donald Trump or people saying Christians are being persecuted. How do you convince anybody that this is not it? And so I feel we need to reduce our our overexcitedness over 2027. Let us handle what we have now at hand. We have a war situation that we need to take it as a war and win it.
Now, the Safe School Declaration was endorsed in 2015, and that was a year after the 276 Chibok girls were kidnapped. I mean, clearly people are scared, and it feels like these attacks keep repeating itself regardless of the measures that are put in place. How well do you think the authorities are handling these repeated incidents?
Certainly, you know, I know you went to school, I don't know whether in Nigeria or outside, maybe secondary school. I remember when I went to secondary school, we used to have, that was before the handed over power, you know, we used to have at least 1 or 2 soldiers in our school. Those ones were for discipline, to train us how to do parade and all that. It wasn't really securing the school, but come on. How many troops will you keep per school? If those bandits come in their last number are 50 to 200 or even more in some cases. So how many kids will you put at school? So I think what government really needs to do, there shouldn't be any kind of solitary protocols, is to look at how we can secure the entire area. The entire area. The school is in the community. Even if it was possible to secure a school like this, bad eggs had come on a mission like this, and maybe they couldn't enter the school, then they will enter into the community. Maybe they will do worse crimes. So what I think government needs to do, that we, as a strategy, get back all our forests. Since when they kidnap people, they take them to the forest. So why can't we take back our forests? I'm not talking about whether forest guards or whatever, because those ones are just multiplication of things that will not bring any result. I'm talking about the military facing the forest from Sokoto to Kebbi to Zamfara to Kaduna and then Katsina. Why can't we take back the forest? Coming down, the forest in the middle belt, the forest in the southwest, and then other forests, wherever. You know, this is but we deal on, because when people said whether the police fired in gunshots, I don't know how many policemen were there. The attackers, from what we normally see on videos, they will come and lash them that. And then if you look at what even happened in this church.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much. Dr. Edinen Usoro, security expert and MD Executive Guards, thank you for lending your voice to this. It's a lot that we have to talk about, but unfortunately we have to move on from here. Thank you once again for your input. Now, we did mention that we have our correspondent, Jamil Mabai, on standby in Kebbi State, specifically in the area where the 25 schoolgirls of the government girls secondary school in Maga, Kebbi, were abducted in the early hours of the morning. Jamil, you are on ground the scene of the abduction where some 25 innocent girls were taken out of their beds and marched into the forest early in the morning. What is the scene like, and how have the families reacted to this so far?
All right. You know, the scene has been that of sober, and you know, there is, you can see there's grief written all over their faces. And I just left to each where the incident happened. The Vice President is expected to arrive in Kebbi any moment from now, but unfortunately, from information gathered, the Vice President will be visiting the school. He will meet some of the parents and the principal officers of the school back in Zoo local government, together with the Emir of Zoo. And so virtually nobody now is on ground at the school, but we are here in one of the residences belonging to the late chief security officer that was killed during the attack. Like I said yesterday, most of the media houses nationally and internationally did not report on the killing of the chief security officer. It was yesterday that we had this first-hand information that he was the one that was killed. And currently I'm in his residence. I just finished interviewing one of his sons, and he expressed deep reflection over the demise of his father. He said he hasn't seen him for like 2 months, but he spoke with his father 3 days ago. And, he was awake when he received the call from his sister that.
Okay, Jamil, let me also ask you. I mean, the president has said that he's instructing the Vice President Kashim Shettima to visit the area, and you've mentioned that his visitation is expected. Now, with the fears and the concern, especially that the families of the abducted girls are facing right now, do you think that all of these guarantee, because we have been informed that the Vice President is coming to ensure them that the security forces are closing in on the abductors, do you think that that will suffice to alleviate the fears and the concerns that they are currently experiencing?
Well, to me, that's just a political statement, statement from the presidency, because Vice President coming to Kebbi but decides to stay in Zulu without visiting the city of Maga, interacting with the parents of these people, seeing the firsthand the mood of the people of Maga. To me, that's what a lot of people ought to have seen from the presidency, because from Maga back to Zulu local government, the distance is quite distant, and the road network is in shambles. So, stressing parents who are undergoing emotional grief and what have you, to take them now and ferry them to Zulu just to talk to them, condole the emir. A lot of people think or believe he should have come down to the school where the incidents happened if truly the presidency has people in their minds. But unfortunately, he's not coming to the town of Maga where the incidents happened. And we left some of the parents back at the school ground waiting. But you can see the despair and the disappointment in their faces when they were told that the Vice President will not be coming to Maga. But some of them have to sponsor their travel to Zulu just to have a glance or listen to the Vice President's speech.
All right, Jamil, before you go, I want to ask you, I mean, I would assume that the school has been shut down. Is that the case? Can you confirm that there are no educational activities going on?
Yeah, I can confirm that it's yet to be opened the school. Even though yesterday when we arrived late in the evening, some of the students they came back to the school, to their hostel. But today it's empty, no movement of teachers, no movement of students, virtually just the security personnel stationed there and the military. So the school as at today, as at now, is yet to reopen.
All right, Jamil Mabai, thank you for bringing us the update. Jamil is currently live at the Maga community where, unfortunately, the 25 schoolgirls were abducted and the vice principal was shot dead. Thank you once again for the update. You're still live with us on the 12 Report. We're going on a short break. When we come back, we've got more stories. Do stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us on the 12 Report. Now, a heated exchange erupted on Piers Morgan's show as Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister, Yusuf Tuggar, and former Canadian Member of Parliament, Goldie Ghamari, clashed over alleged anti-Christian violence in Nigeria. Now, Tuggar rejected figures from advocacy groups, calling them inflated and insisting Nigeria's insecurity is not driven by religion. Ghamari accused the government of complicity and extremist targeting, prompting Tuggar to accuse her of promoting divisive narratives from abroad.
So we're not hiding any figures, you see. It's important to understand this. Same way that there are mosques that are destroyed. I don't even have to mention that. Nigeria is configured in such a way that you have Muslim and Christian populations all across the country. There are, of course, states out of the 36 states that we have that have a high concentration of Christians, the same way that there are states where you have a high concentration of Muslims.
Piers, what's happening in Nigeria is jihad. It's the exact same thing that happened on October 7 by Islamists when they broke into Israel and murdered Jews yelling Allahu Akbar. It's the exact same thing that ISIS terrorists did to the Yazidis in Iraq. It's the exact same thing that happened in Lebanon. Here's the only difference between what's happening today in Nigeria versus what happened 1,400 years ago when the Muslim Arab invaders came to Persia is that back then people did not have cameras, but today they do. It is 100% jihad. We've seen it before. This is how the Islamist playbook always happens.
Well, I don't think that the foreign minister was denying that bad things have been happening. He's just denying that it constitutes a genocide and that the numbers of reported deaths of
because his government is a
Christians
part of it.
In the meantime, U.S. rapper Nicki Minaj has sought stronger international intervention to protect vulnerable communities. Speaking at a UN panel on religious violence, she warned that faith groups in Nigeria face growing threats and emphasizing that religious persecution anywhere demands global attention and solidarity.
In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned, families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly, simply because of how they pray. Sadly, this problem is not only a growing problem in Nigeria, but also...
The Lagos State government says the planned rehabilitation works on the Lekki-Ajah corridor, earlier scheduled to begin on Saturday, 15 November, has been postponed to a later date. The Lagos State Commissioner for Transportation, Oluwaseun Osiyemi, announced this in a statement on Tuesday. Osiyemi explained that while preliminary activities will continue until the end of the month, full rehabilitation works will not commence until a revised schedule is issued. We are now joined live by News Central's lead correspondent, Bernard Akede, who is at the Lekki-Ajah corridor as we speak. Bernard, it's quite interesting because when the initial news broke, a lot of people were worried, especially about Dirty December, and then they said the timing could not be more wrong. What are the factors that could have contributed to the postponement of the rehabilitation?
And the first factor that would have contributed to the postponement of the major rehabilitation work on
All right, we'll try to reestablish connections with Bernard. I think we're having some network troubles, but we go on a short break now. When we come back, the 12 report continues. Stay with us. All right, thanks for staying with us. It's still 12 report, and we were talking about the planned rehabilitation work on the Lekki-Ajah axis, which has now been postponed. And we have our correspondent, Bernard Akede, who is at the Lekki-Ajah road as we speak. And Bernard, we're talking about the fact that people, before now were saying that the timing couldn't be more wrong because the festivities are fast approaching. Could that be one of the major reasons why this suspension happened?
I was agreeing with you entirely, saying that yes, the timing couldn't be more wrong. Around this time of the year, leading into December, we will have people flocking into Lagos. Majority of them coming into this area, Lekki-Ajah axis, which usually is the route you will take if you're coming to Lekki, Ajah, Victoria Island, possibly Ikoyi through some other routes as well. Remember again that this part of Lagos is the part that houses a good number of recreational activities, like the likes of beaches, the likes of clubs, bars, pubs, recreational centers, I beg your pardon. So we're going to be seeing a lot of traffic. The population in this area may eventually double between December beginning and January ending, when people begin to, return to their various places where they came from. So Yes, the road needs to be fixed. There needs to be rehabilitation work on this road, major rehabilitation work, as a matter of fact. But the timing definitely was quite wrong.
So, Bernard, you are quite familiar with this route. What would you say are the major issues that motorists face along this particular stretch? Is it the potholes? Is it the congestion? What exactly were the planned works that were meant to be carried out on this road?
If I were to speak on the planned works that I think should be carried out on this road, and yes, I'm familiar with this road. I live somewhere across the axis, so it's my daily commuting area. To start with, are the potholes, like you clearly mentioned. We have yawning potholes, some as huge as craters, on different axes, different points of the road that, of course, will slow down fast-paced traffic as it was supposed to be. We equally have, of course, the impatience of drivers, both commercial and private drivers. And then, of course, there is the inactivity of certain technology that has been put on the road. For example, there are times when the traffic lights refuse to work, and I think it's quite a coincidence. There's one right behind me right now that probably isn't working right there. And the moment you have these this infrastructure not working, of course, it causes confusion and sometimes mayhem. Besides traffic lights, you have the street lights, and when they all go out at night, it gets completely dark. And then finally, the part I'll touch on, of course, is the part where some of the traffic officials themselves do not help matters at all. You have some of them conniving with private or commercial vehicle drivers, trying to get them ahead of the light, sometimes so that they can get some tips from them. So put all this together, and the road should be in good working condition. But finally, I also say that putting them together should not end there. There should be enforcement of traffic rules and traffic laws, and then proper time-to-time maintenance of the road. With all of this, I think the combination will be perfect to have smooth roads along Lekki-Ajah Expressway.
All right, Bernard, before we let you go, we want to find out, have you been able to speak with commuters along that axis, and what has been their response to the planned rehabilitation and to the postponement of the plan?
We haven't started speaking to commuters yet because we just commenced shooting. But of course, if you go on social media, you will hear people, random people, influencers. Oh, well, there was a truck that passed by, and one of the truck drivers actually did mention, first things first, of course, they all complain about the timing of this planned, of the previously planned rehabilitation of the road. It could have not been longer than the time that it was placed upon. And then secondly, of course, the state of the road, complaining about the potholes I talked about earlier. The road is riddled with potholes in certain areas. The commissioner did mention that some palliative work will start and last until the end of the month. And I see that some famous potholes have been leveled, but of course nothing permanent. So these are some of the things that some of the drivers who slowed down to speak talked about, and some people have complained about on social media as well. The fact that the road has to be properly taken care of. The potholes have to be sealed up properly so that if you're driving from here, you can have a good experience. And of course, to prevent accidents and other misfortunes that may happen along the roads. But then again, of course, they hammered on the fact that the timing was completely wrong. And of course, like you stated, that most likely is the reason why the date has been moved.
Thank you so much for bringing us the update from the Lekki-Ajah axis in Lagos, Nigeria, on the planned rehabilitation, which has now been suspended. President Bola Tinubu will depart Abuja on Wednesday after a two-nation visit to Johannesburg, South Africa, and Luanda, Angola. The president's first stop is Johannesburg, where he will attend the 20th summit of the G20 leaders. After the summit, he will proceed to Angola for the EU-AU summit. President Cyril Ramaphosa, the South African leader who also serves as the current president of the G20 group, invited his Nigerian counterparts to participate in this year's edition. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil had, during his presidency of the group in 2024, equally invited President Tinubu to Rio de Janeiro. The summit, scheduled to take place from Saturday, November 22nd to Sunday, November 23rd at the Johannesburg Expo Center, brings together leaders from the world's top 20 economies, including the European Union, the African Union, and financial institutions, among others. Let's now move away from security matters. The Kano zone of the Academic Staff Union of Universities has called on the federal government to speed up negotiations with the union or face a full shutdown by lecturers. Speaking at a press briefing held in Kano, The zonal coordinator, Abducted Mohammed, says that the union is increasingly alarmed by the government's alleged lukewarm attitude towards resolving long-standing concerns raised by the UN. Mohammed says that members have become seriously dismayed and disillusioned with the snail's pace of renegotiations.
What government has offered to ASUU will neither significantly improve the working conditions of Nigerian academics, nor attract scholars from other countries to take up teaching jobs in our universities. Despite this, some government agents have resorted to peddling false narratives that our demands have been substantially met. This raises doubt about government sincerity in our engagement. It also shows that the government favors propaganda over genuine efforts to timely resolve the outstanding issues in the ongoing renegotiation. The zone expresses profound concern regarding the continued and gross neglect of education sector. The 1-month ultimatum given to government to respond to our demands will soon lapse. Therefore, the zone is appealing to all stakeholders, traditional rulers, religious leaders, civil society organizations, trade unions, students and their parents, and other concerned Nigerians to prevail on the government to address all outstanding issues so as to avert another round of total shutdown of our universities.
Now, the trial of 2 suspected Ansaru members, Mahmoud Usman and Abubakar Abba, has resumed at the Federal High Court in Abuja. The federal government accuses the defendants of conspiring to lead a terrorist organization, participating in kidnapping activities, receiving training in weapons handling and improvised explosive device fabrication, and coordinating attacks on a Nigerian army cantonment in Kainji, Niger State. At the previous sitting, one of the defendants, Mahmoud Usman, was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment after pleading guilty to count 10 of a 32-count terrorism charge. We are now joined by News Central's Joshua Imarai, who is at the courthouse monitoring the proceedings. Joshua, what is the latest on this trial so far as you have been monitoring?
Development from the trial is that the trial has been adjourned to January 2026, the 15th of January. We tried accessing the court earlier on, but we met severe resistance from agents of the DSS who told me that I will not be permitted to enter the court. And I explained to him who I was, and I was covering the case from the start, and he still insisted that admission into the court is not granted to the journalists. But later court win of the recent development that the case has been adjourned to January 15th, 2026 for the trial to commence properly. And I also got from reliable sources that one of the reasons why the case could not continue was that the defense attorney told the court that he has not had the opportunity to interact with the suspect, and he prayed the court to grant them a later date. But this was contested by the prosecution. That is the person from the DPP, Department of Public Prosecution, D.S. Casway, who told the court that the court should continue with the trial schedule. But Justice Emeka Nwite, however, adjourned to January 15, 2026, so as to allow the defense attorney talk and have his own time with the defendants in this trial.
So, well, what are we now expecting? I mean, is there a plea of some sort? Because we hear that in the first trial, one of them was sentenced to 15 years.
Yes, earlier on, at the last adjourned date before this, the defendants took their plea, and when particularly for Mahmoud Usman, who is now serving 15 years and still in the DSS custody, actually pleaded guilty to count 10 of the 32 count charges. The count 10 was bordering on illegal mining, and the court convicted him on instance for illegal mining. So aside that, the other person, who is Abubakar Abba, has not pleaded guilty to any of the charges brought against him. But what we know is that Mahmoud Usman pleaded guilty to count 10 of the 33 charges and has been sentenced to 15 years in prison. But however, Mahmoud Usman is still in the DSS custody pending the conclusion of the trial.
All right, Joshua Marai, thank you so much for the update on that. The House of Representatives has commenced an investigation into the abandonment of federal government buildings and landed properties across the country in a bid to recover them. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Abbas Tajuddin, while inaugurating an ad hoc committee tasked on this assignment, says that the committee's mandate reflects the 10th House's commitment to ensuring transparency and accountability in public assets management. Tajuddin, who was represented by the Chief Whip of the House, Usman Kumon, says that the investigation will uncover the location, status, history, and current occupancy of all abandoned federal government properties alongside the policy failures that led to their abandonment.
There was a review by 2000 of Presidential Implementation Committee set up by the then Obasanjo government to review this particular subject matter. It is the responsibility of this committee, among other things, to investigate the authenticity and the status of these said landed properties across the country. It is further part of the responsibilities of this committee to review the Presidential Implementation Committee report and recommend further and better recommendations.
The committee pledged to discharge this mandate with utmost diligence, transparency, and fidelity to the public trust, ensuring that every aspect of the responsibility entrusted to us is executed with precision and integrity. We further commit to delivering outcomes and reflect the highest standard of legislative oversight, timely, evidence-driven, and firmly anchored in national interest.
A group of retired police officers has barricaded the entrance to the National Assembly complex, accusing government agencies of imposing what they describe as a fraudulent and inhumane contributory pension scheme on the Nigerian police force. The retirees, who have been camped at the Assembly's main entrance for weeks now, say thousands of officers who served the country for decades are now living in hardship under the current pension arrangement. They're calling on the Senate to expedite action on removing them from the contributory pension scheme, a move they say the House of Representatives has already approved.
We need to tell this. Don't tell this from the front. Don't tell this from the front. It's a robbery. It's a killer. Eko is a killer. Eko is a robbery. Eko is a robbery. Eko is a
You're live with us on the 12 Report. We go on a short break, and when we come back, we've got more stories. Do stay with us. And now, outside of Nigeria, Sudanese families displaced from El Fasher are recounting the harrowing violence they faced as they fled to Tawila. Aid teams from the International Committee of the Red Cross say the number of new arrivals is rising daily as civilians escape intensified fighting, hunger, and the collapse of medical services. Now, many families described fleeing under gunfire, carrying little more than their children and a few belongings. The ICRC warns that the humanitarian situation is deteriorating rapidly, with food shortages deepening and almost no access to medical care. For many displaced Sudanese, Tawila has become a fragile refuge amid escalating conflict.
Thousands of families have been forced to flee their homes as a result of the conflict. They arrived here in Tawila, and they are arriving on a daily basis. They are mostly women, children, and elderlies. Their situation is extremely difficult. They are even not able to cover their basic needs. They are hungry, thirsty, traumatized, and exhausted. Some of them are even injured or sick and lost the contact with their beloved ones.
احنا قاعدين في حياة تكافل ودانا دقت وابونا اتفقد وانا ذاتي متأوق في الاذن هنا وهسي بالليل ده ما بخليني بيت نهائيا والنهار ده نقيل كويس لكن بالليل ده بجيني القتل ده هو اذني ذاته مقطوع وكمان قعدنا كده عشان نطلب وسيله اللي نطلبوه من الفاشر ما في قعدنا انا من الفاشر ده يتضايق بعدك حسيت انا
في الفاشر في معسكر طويله وحصل لنا المشكله في الشارع وكانت قابلنا مع المجرمين كانوا دقونا وحرقونا واغتصاب وبالشكل زي ده وجينا في معسكر طويل في معسكر طويله في عرقو والحمد لله جينا حسنا وكان جو وعطش واي حاجه لكن حس الحمد لله بالنعمه تامه.
انا بفتش في ولدي عشان بلقاه ما لقيته الناس قالوا كله بقول لي يمكن مع الناس الميتين بنمشي نفتحه طبعا يعني احساس غريب انت بتحس باحساس كده يعني ما طبيعي انت لما يقول لك عندك زول كده مفقود ويعني شيء طبيعي عندنا زول طلع ما جاي يعني ميت بس اصلا تفتكره.
Now, ahead of the G20 summit, every year the world's largest economies come together for the G20 Leaders Summit, a gathering of global powerhouses shaping the future of the planet. Ahead of this year's meeting, scheduled for the 22nd to 23rd of November in Johannesburg, civil society organizations from around the world have converged on South Africa for the G20 Social Summit, a platform amplifying voices from the ground up. News Central's Ubongani Siziba reports.
G20. Before the cameras roll and the formal celebrations are signed at the weekend G20 summit, another important gathering is underway in Johannesburg. The Social Summit is an inclusive, people-driven forum where diverse communities, local leaders, and civil society representatives engage in conversations that shape global priorities. Officially opening the event, Deputy President Paul Mashatile said the upcoming G20 summit must elevate the hopes and aspirations of the entire African continent.
I think that's the importance of it, that the voice of people will be heard through the G20 Social Summit, feeding into the agenda of the leaders, which will take place this weekend. So this is really the purpose of the Social Summit. It will continue until Thursday.
Meanwhile, civil society groups emphasize the importance of the Social Summit. Some critics describe such platforms as talk shops, but many also acknowledge the progress being made, particularly on the urgent issues like gender-based violence and inequality.
This event is really critical because before it's a collection of civil society, and we know the G20, they control 85% of GDP. While you know that civil society is the one that controls the majority of humanity. So this event is really critical as we're able to showcase to the leaders where can they put the money, like budgeting finances. Is it in climate change? Is it in children? Is it in facing off inequality?
I do see a significant increase in the amount of content that's been dedicated to women's rights and gender-based violence. However, I must be honest in saying I'm a bit disappointed because I expect it to be gender-based violence is a standalone subject, and I think that it should have been given the platform and the airtime that it deserves.
Over the next 2 days, participants will delve into key issues ranging from digital inclusion and climate justice to sustainable finance and fair trade. As the world leaders prepare to gather in South Africa, this summit is a reminder of the collective push for a more inclusive and just global future. In Johannesburg for News Central, Wongani Siziba.
In a bipartisan move, the U.S. Congress has approved its legislation in the Justice Department to release its files on Jeffrey Epstein. The House of Representatives passed the bill by a resounding 427-1 vote, with only Louisiana Republican Clay Higgins opposing. Just hours later, the upper chamber, the Senate unanimously approved the same measure without debate. The bill, known as the Epstein Files Transparency Act, requires the DOJ to make all unclassified Epstein-related documents public, including communications, flight logs, and materials naming other individuals. Meanwhile, the DOJ will withhold information that could compromise open investigations or reveal victim identities. Having both chambers on board, the bill now heads to President Donald Trump, who has said he will sign it into law. Nigeria is entering a level of insecurity that should have every single person alarmed. This is now too rampant to ignore. In Lakota, for example, where I grew up, kidnappings have become a weekly routine. It's extremely concerning. At this point, flying isn't even luxury, it's a necessity. And the kidnappings of schoolgirls keep stacking. Now, 82 girls from 2014, the abduction, are still missing. 82 humans till today. Another 25 schoolgirls were taken just yesterday in Kebbi with the vice principal. Well, thankfully, it has been clarified that he wasn't killed. But how many more before we admit something is fundamentally broken? Then the fresh heat in Kwara, same pattern, same horror. Church worshippers were attacked with 2 confirmed killed and others abducted, including the pastor. This was caught live on camera. People like to frame this as a northern issue, but it's not. This is national. The tragedy cuts across region and across class. The truth is simple. People are dying daily. Families are being shattered. Terrorists are being recycled into the society, and we are acting like this is all normal. But it's not. This is a national emergency, and Nigeria is bleeding while the rest of us are trying to survive inside the chaos. But how long do we have to endure this for? What is the data of Nigeria and Nigerians if this isn't nipped in the bud as soon as possible? The festivities are coming, but insecurity keeps rising. Well, that's your postscript.